I'm Mark Beachy reporting for the Maryland Theater Guide. On April 14th, activists for gun control gathered in Washington, D.C. between the Lincoln Memorial and the Reflecting Pool to perform in a flash mob. This beautiful spring day brought out many tourists who got an unexpected surprise. Let's watch as the flash mob happens. Then stay tuned afterwards for a behind-the-scenes look into this historic event, including interviews and rehearsal footage. Plus, we will be showing more video from the flash mob.
I know.
When I was 2.5 years old, it was a Sunday evening, February 22nd, 1981. There was a domestic dispute between my mother and her ex-husband. He took his 12-gauge shotgun, fired one shot into her back, and her body fell 4 feet away from me. I was 2.5 years old at the time. She was killed instantly. He took the gun, placed it down my throat, and attempted to fire twice. Unfortunately, there was a malfunction in the firing mechanism, which is the reason why I'm here today. But when I was 14 years old, I went to my first anti-gun violence rally after a very good friend of mine lost his cousin to a shooting, a drive-by shooting in the streets of Los Angeles. And it was from that moment on that I vowed to myself, to the memory and honor of my mother, that I would not give up this fight until something is done, until we can ensure that more mothers and more fathers, and especially the children, are secure in this country. So here I am today, 21 years later, after taking that vow, and what a day. I had no idea that this was going to hit me as emotional as it did, and I think I was writing in Mama on the outline that lad did. It just really hit me, because even after all these years, it's been 32 years since I lost her. Sometimes it's just all too fresh, and I guess the beauty of art is, you hear so much speaking about it, and you go out and you speak to the people, you objectify, you're in Congress, and sometimes you just need that moment of art to take that really raw and powerful emotion and unleash it that way. And this this flash mob really did it today. It truly did it.
You have another event coming up. Would you like to talk about that?
When at the Capitol? Yeah, at the Capitol, tomorrow we're actually going to go out, and victims and survivors everywhere are going to start to read out of a 24-hour vigil, just constantly read the 3,300 plus victims who have been killed in the United States since the Newtown shootings. And just to continuously read the names. And sadly, every day we're probably going to have to add names to those, but to really tell our Senate and eventually our Congress that this has to stop. 32,000 plus victims of gun violence in this country every year is just too much to bear, is absolutely too much to bear. And people need to understand that this, and especially our elected officials, this is not just an urban issue. This is not just an issue when there's gang violence and drugs. This affects every corner of our communities, from the urban streets of Chicago to the suburbs of Washington, D.C., movie theaters, elementary schools. We're all affected by this. We have to unite together, and we have to be a strong voice to demand action.
What specific action are you calling for with gun control?
With the obvious, it is a no-brainer that universal background checks need to take place. Every single gun transaction that takes place in this country, whether it's in a gun show or it's in a gun shop, or if it's private between family member, this needs to be recorded. There needs to be a background check that takes place, and the government needs to be involved to make sure that these guns are not being obtained by people that should not have them. Second of all, the assault weapons. We know from every military expert and police officers that this is a tactical use. This is for warfare. It has nothing to do with hunting, has nothing to do with the defense of a home. And while we're debating this, people are being slaughtered. This is an everyday problem in our country. That has got to stop. We need to bring the safety to the schools. We need to get on board and unify and listen to the experts, not to the opinions, and to start making substantial change to our country.
After the flash mob, I spoke with Molly Smith, who is the artistic director of Arena Stage, as well as a gun control activist.
Molly, what's going through your mind right now?
What's going through my mind is this is a historic week at the Senate. And this is a historic moment in front of the Lincoln Memorial because April 14th is the day that Abraham Lincoln was shot, the first president to be assassinated by an act of gun violence. And that is what is going to be argued next week by the Senate, is really to move into common sense gun control. And I have to say, I had an epiphany the other day because there was a wonderful PBS show that talked about how at the end of the Civil War, all of these young boys from farms were able to take their guns home. That was the gift they were given at the end. So what we're really dealing with here has to do with a gun culture that is deeply embedded in our culture as Americans. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so hard to extricate. It was at the end of the bloodiest war that America has ever been in. The young men were given these high-performance guns to take home with them back to their farms, and that became a badge of courage for them. So now as we look at our culture of gun violence, you can look back to places where it began.
This was a very moving experience for me and as well as for everybody involved. Who came up with the idea for this?
Well, this is a really brilliant young woman, Lauren Lataro. She is a Broadway choreographer, and a few months ago she got in contact with me because she was going to be doing a flash mob on Times Square of this whole idea of being able to have a true visualization of what we've lost and all of the losses. And I just thought it was a fantastic idea. So I guess 2 or 3 weeks ago I basically said to her, Lauren, it has to come to DC. And this is the time when everybody's talking about gun control. We need as many moments of these visual pieces of imagery that helps people understand what's happening in the United States. 30,000 deaths a year. Unconscionable.
The last time we spoke, of course, was at the March on Washington for Gun Control. Can you tell us about some of the things that have transpired since then?
Well, the biggest thing for us really was at the March on Washington for Gun Control, my partner Suzanne Blue Star Boy worked with a number of people from Newtown, including a fantastic man by the name of David, who brought 100 people from Newtown to the march. There were about 6,000 people at the march. And their presence was really the center of what we were doing, because this directly came out of the massacre that had occurred. And Dave Ackert called us the next day and said, listen, when we came, people were nervous. They didn't know what a march was. A number of people had never marched before. Hearts were really heavy, as you can imagine. When they left, within a day, they felt full of hope and the understanding that Newtown is really at the nexus of this whole movement. And so then what occurred is they organized within the next few days. So how powerful is that? And I keep hearing from people that are writing their congresspeople, who are calling their senators, who are working at the state level, working at the local level, working at the federal level. That's really what it's all about. It's moving people into being citizen activists, to remind people to stop being armchair activists, to stop just being on Facebook, actually get out and get into action. So tons has happened. I mean, it's a huge movement across the United States, and the American people are further ahead of our own legislators. They are further ahead. 90%, 92% want background checks. And yet we're having this kind of argument at the level of the Senate. It's crazy. The people are ahead of the senators and the congresspeople. So I just think the people have to keep pushing till we push it through.
What's going to be happening to this canvas?
Well, one of the men who was a part of the March on Washington for gun control is going to be taking it tomorrow to the House and to the Senate.
That's going to make a powerful statement, to say the least.
Exactly. And hopefully, because of people like you, Mark, and other outlets that are here, this is going to be seen on the news, it'll be seen on the internet, and when that happens, as it goes viral, more and more people respond to it, are aware of it, and the point is that people aren't going to stand for it anymore. They're not going to stand for it anymore. They're not going to be silent anymore, because when we're silent, we're complicit.
One last question. This is certainly a statement on how art can change society, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. I think a lot of times artists believe that they stay within their own houses of worship, but really the truth is that as artists, we have the responsibility to speak our minds and also have an impact on society.
In preparation for the flash mob performance, participants gathered at Arena Stage to rehearse the same morning of the event. Organized by the group Art Equals Ammo, Artists Against Gun Violence, participants worked with event organizer Lauren Lataro, who is also a Broadway actress and choreographer.
You can count by yourselves, like a surrender, yeah? No talking, no nothing, you just stay here. And you'll watch, everybody else will sort of disperse from the space. After 26 seconds, I will lower the white flag and will slowly, very slowly, sink to the ground. One partner, decide now, will go all the way down to the ground and what I call a sort of CSI cutout, yeah? So you can find an interesting position. Sort of bent limbs that are interesting. You could be on your front, you could be on your side, you could be down like this, any way you wish, yeah, on the canvas. The other partner will have the chalk in their hand first. They will lean, they'll come all the way down, except they'll go to their knee, and they'll hold their hand over your heart, just a few inches away from it. So there's a bit of space between your hand and that person's heart. And we'll stay there for 26 seconds. And you'll count 26 by yourselves on that one, okay? Nice and slow. From there, the person who's got their hand on the heart has the chalk. You start chalking that person's body. Do I leave my body today? My body. So if you've melted all the way down, awesome. And then I'm going to chalk around you. And then when I'm done chalking, you're going to roll over. And I'm going to write the word that you've given, unless you have something personal you'd like to write. And you write that word in the chalk. And then you're going to get up. And I'm going to go down on a new empty little piece of the canvas, and then you're going to chalk me. Yeah? And then he chalks me, and then he writes his word inside the body. Make sense? Right. And what we should do is do this. And then we get up and we walk away and we leave the space. And what you could do is sort of enjoy the work you've done and land on the periphery of the space.
Ladd Everett, Director of Communications with the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence in D.C., gave a motivational pep talk.
We've actually been able to move some critical pieces of legislation that are supposed to be voted on the floor of the Senate this week. Senate starts again on Tuesday. A couple of people have mentioned that we were able to break an initial filibuster on these bills last week. That was a humongous moment for the movement. 68 to 31 votes. You got a number of Republicans to vote to break the filibuster. So when you call Congress, and we'll all be writing the numbers, call senators. We'll fight the House battle hopefully in a week or two or a few weeks, but let's for now focus on senators, right? Because we're trying to line up votes among senators. Are there Virginia residents here? Give Warner hell. Give Warner hell. Tell Warner you want him to vote yes on everything. Tell him no NRA stuff, no funny stuff. The three key things that we're asking for, the three main provisions that will be voted on: expanding background checks to sales at gun shows and that are also made online. So expanding background checks for all those sales. The second key thing is renewing the ban on assault weapons and high-capacity ammunition magazines. And then the third thing is enacting tougher criminal penalties for straw buyers and gun traffickers. So those are the three things. And you should just be telling them, vote yes for all of these things. Do not water down. Do not allow these provisions to be watered down. Vote for strong legislation. And that's it. And let's keep pushing.
Yeah, started this social movement with one protest of 32 of us representing the 32 victims lying down for 3 minutes in front of City Hall in Alexandria, Virginia, there in Old Town across the river. It spread across the nation, and we've had over 150 what we call lie-ins, like sit-ins during the civil rights movement, to mobilize Americans to make our voice heard, that we want better gun laws to save American lives. Many of us here have been in the lie-ins. Ladd has led lie-ins in Washington to keep the drumbeat of Americans' voices heard. Lauren emerged after the Newtown massacre of 20 children and 6 teachers, again in a matter of minutes, by a murderer who had an assault weapon, who murdered these children. Each child was shot 3 to 11 times. So, over 90% of Americans believe in tighter gun laws, stricter, stronger gun laws. Over 90%. 92% of Americans believe in background checks before every gun sale. That's over 90% of Americans believe in background checks before gun sales. Over 80% of gun owners believe in background checks before gun sales. Over 70% of NRA members believe in background checks before gun sales. Why are background checks important? Up to 40-50% of guns sold in America are sold without a background check. That means you could be a felon leaving jail yesterday and walk into a gun show or online and buy a gun as easy as a candy bar. In a matter of minutes, no ID check, cash and carry. Again, up to 40 to 50% of guns sold in America are sold as easy as it would to buy a candy bar. We are fighting back now for American lives. We want to save American lives, and this is what it all boils down to this week in America. The floor vote on the Senate is supposed to occur this week. Looks like it may be Tuesday, but it's a moving target. But that's why this protest today is critical. If you guys, after this is over, email your friends, text your friends, say be at the Lincoln Memorial at 12:30. We need to get as many Americans there as possible to be in this protest action. We are continuing to do 24-hour protests, if you can believe it, through the night, every single day this week until our Congress votes. We got the protest permits in front of the Capitol. We're going to be there every day. That's how we beat the filibuster. Senator Harry Reid's office told me that it was our protests and the outrage of Americans that defeated the filibuster this week. So I cannot even begin to tell you how important it is that you're here today being part of this action and making our voice heard to our Congress the week that they are taking this critical vote for the lives of our fellow Americans. Thank you, Lauren, so much for organizing this, and Molly for your leadership on this.